So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Welcome to my iPhone 13 honest review. Now this is the regular 13, no pro action here, no mini action, and this one does come in at $799 for 128 gig. You can also get this one at 256 gig for $899 or $512 for the first time. I'm more of the base model iPhone. The 13 can give you 512 gig at a staggering $1,099. So yeah, this base model regular iPhone 13 can reach that $1,100 price tag if you want all that extra storage. Now it does come with a 6.1 inch Super Retina XDR OLED display capable up to 800 nits, 460 ppi. In addition to that, it does have a dual 12 megapixel camera on the back with the all new cinematic mode, improved low light performance, as well as 4 gigs of RAM and Apple A15 Bionic. And one of the most important things about this phone to note is the larger capacity battery at 3240 milliamp hour. It's up pretty good over the iPhone 12 in the battery department. And discussing the overall design elements of this phone, it's hard to talk about this. That's why I have the iPhone 12 next to this without, talking about the iPhone 12, because all that really changed was they moved the camera to be a diagonal. Those cameras, they get a little bit larger. The phone feels a little bit heavier, and the notch is a little bit different by comparison to iPhone 12, as you can see up there. But if you put a blindfold on and you handed me both these phones, the only way I'd be able to tell would be to touch these cameras up here, because other than that, the vertical cameras, it would be hard to tell the difference. And that's not a bad thing. The iPhone 12 was a beautiful device last year. The iPhone 13 remains the same way. However, if you're looking for total redesigns every year, that's just not what you get from Apple. So I'm not disappointed with it. I like some of the new colors. I really do like this blue right here. I don't think it's too bad whatsoever. Some people may like the new pink color, and some people may like some of the other colors that were offered. Let me know your favorite color of this phone below. Overall, I think for the money, it does feel, about its price point. Until you get to that $512, $1,099 phone, then I would probably swing for a Pro, because I'm not paying over $1,000 for aluminum body. Overall, I would say that, having the ceramic glass in the back and the front, I did put a screen protector, but it's a very durable phone, so you don't really have to worry too much. In addition to that, you do have IP68 dust and water resistance on this baby, so it's going to be capable up to 6 meters for 30 minutes. It's an overall durable, classy looking build, and it still features, something I think a lot of people will enjoy. Honestly, I enjoy it. I think it's pretty nice, but again, I'm always looking to see innovation. So as we see the newer designs, I'll be on board for those to see what those look like. But for now, I think this is going to appeal to a lot of people still, even though they didn't change it much in terms of design. Okay, guys, so when it comes to the display of this phone, we are looking at a Super Retina XDR like we talked about earlier. Now, it doesn't have the 120 hertz, and is that a disappointment? Kind of, just because some Android phones that are, even cheaper than this still have 90 hertz, 120 hertz. So I just feel like Apple made that cut to upsell you to the Pro series. Honestly, I think they could have had it here, and I know for a fact in the future the base model ones are going to get it. That's going to be the upgrade in the future to get you to buy the next iPhone. We know it's coming, but for now, the 60 hertz, I think it's kind of saved by the fact that it's iOS, because iOS is really smooth regardless of the fact, so I don't think it's going to be turning off customers too much. But if you do look at the Pro and then you look at this, you're going to be a little bit like, whoa, that's really way smoother. But it still might not convince you to pay the extra $500 for a phone like that. Now, when you are in photos and you are pinching into a photo, the notch can dig in a little bit here. This is going to be, of course, more noticeable for a mini phone even. When you are in Apple News, when you are reading articles, Apple has made it to where the notch doesn't cut into the content. Of course, they were thinking about it there. And in all their apps, basically, they have it set up that way, so you should be pretty good there. Now, when you are watching a YouTube video, some people say that it cuts in even more than ever before, just because that notch comes down a little bit farther instead of going, a little bit wider. So it comes down a little bit deeper. So yes, it's still cutting into content on YouTube, which is a shame, because, there are phones that are feeling a lot more all screen than this phone, and this one continues to be one of the hottest sellers out there. So yeah, we're kind of ready to see an all-screen iPhone down the line, But for now, it's bright, it's vivid, it's beautiful. It's even brighter than last year at 800 nits. And overall, I think it's still going to be a very enjoyable panel. This is not going to turn people off from buying unless you want the best of the best smooth display. In that case, you have the 13 Pro, or you can try a different platform phone and get, you know, even more all-screen like phone. But at a huge density of 460 ppi, you'll never see a pixel on this phone. Even pixel peepers are not going to see a pixel on this phone. It's a good overall size. It's smooth enough. I think it's going to be just fine. And when it comes to software, for the iPhone 13, this is running iOS 15 out of the box, and it runs very smooth. Some people are actually reporting 15 hurting the battery life on their 12s. I think that might be because the phones are calibrating, but the battery life has been pretty good on here. And with iOS 15, you do get some of the nice new focus modes right here. This is the feature I've been using the most that comes included with 15, but there's a lot more going on, like the new FaceTime features and more. So overall, you know, you are getting the latest software. However, this is not a revolutionary update to iOS. It just doesn't change it too much. So the average user might not notice too many new features on iOS 15. So it doesn't really change too much there. So just like the phone's hardware didn't change drastically, iOS 15 is refined. And yes, if you dig around, there are hundreds of new features, but the average user is going to pop open an iPhone and feel like they're still running iOS 14, just because the things that you see visually a lot, you'll have to look for those details in iOS 15. But still great software, it's still a great ecosystem, and you still have many years of support. So I would definitely give it a recommend. I do miss the fact that there's no split screen on this phone when I come from an Android phone, though. I think this display is large enough to split the display. We have widgets, we're getting there, but I want to see split screen on all the iPhones going forward. Brings me on to performance. Now, what do you think is going to happen? I haven't done a speed test with this one, but if you see my 13 Pro Max, this one has essentially the same CPU, and everything is smooth, everything is fast, but that was the case also last year for the 12. So you're not really going to see a major change when it comes to your day-to-day life using this iPhone 13 and the performance, unless you are really doing things like video rendering. And I'm talking actual video rendering, like you're using it for real projects and doing like 10-15 minute videos, you're rendering them out, stuff like that. It might flex its muscles a little bit. And in gaming, it might pop a game open slightly quicker and have a little bit better graphical performance. And yes, if we go technically speaking, it is the more powerful CPU, but in the real world, in real life, you know, every year these gains are not going to be that mind-blowing. These operating systems, these phones have matured so well, and Apple has been optimizing these phones so great for so long that the fact of the matter is, no matter which iPhone you get right now, you're going to have great performance, and the iPhone 13 is no different. That's why I really like what they did with the Pros this year with the ProMotion displays, because with this one, you can't really tell. Whereas with the 13 Pro and 13 Pro Max, you can see that visually faster display. Now, one area I think they could have improved here was the RAM. They kept this thing at 4 gigabytes of RAM, so no 6 gigs here. And all that simply means that if you're opening a lot of applications, you might see a little bit better reload performance on something like the iPhone 13 Pro Max. For example, I just think they went with the larger display. We could have went 8 gigs on the 13 Pro Max and went 6 gigs here. But moving on into the next area I want to talk about, which is the storage. And honestly, this is one of the bigger upgrades. I'm very happy that they doubled the storage here, although they do have more power hungry, you know, camera app now with these cinematic modes, and they do expect people to use a little bit higher quality video. It might take a little more storage. It's still nice to see that we have 128 gig as the base model. There was a time Apple was offering a 16 gigabyte, so that is a major update, I would say, and much better if you're going to be paying $800 for a phone, getting 128 gig versus a 64 gig base model iPhone 12 from last year. So that is a win, and I think they're still selling the 64 gig iPhone 12, so this is definitely a win, having more storage. All right, guys, talking about the dual camera setup here for the iPhone 13. So those larger lenses are not just larger, they do give you this awesome cinematic video mode now that will create a shallow depth of field. I'll show you some samples in a minute here. It also works on the front facing camera, so that's a win too if you want to blur the background on video. In addition, you can of course do your 4K 60. There's no 8K video here on the iPhone just yet. In the photo modes, you do have these new filters that will allow you to go to between rich contrast, vibrant, warm, and you can leave it in this mode to take the type of photo that you prefer every time. That's pretty neat. And then if you flip it over to the front, you can also use that rich contrast, that vibrant. So your selfie game is going to come down to whatever you want to use on this phone. Pretty neat there. Of course, you can change your aspect ratios. You have the live photo modes and stuff like that. So it's all here. Portrait modes are great as always, and they have improved low light performance. Other than that, that's about it. So go ahead and tell me what you think of the samples. I gotta say, I'm loving this camera. I'm not like blown away versus the iPhone 12, but I like that they keep pushing it further. I think it's great that they brought the cinematic video. That I'm blown away with, but the overall photo quality, you know, it's pretty tight. But I would say that this is definitely an area that I'm very, very happy with here with the iPhone 13. And you might be too, if you coming from something like an iPhone 11 or maybe even the iPhone 10R, you're going to really love this upgrade. Okay guys, so when it comes to the battery life, we are looking at a larger battery cell. What does it actually perform like? And I gotta tell you, I'm watching these percentages just drain a lot slower than before. But I'm a little annoyed that my 12 has been draining a little faster since iOS 15 as well. This one right here seems to be a much better battery life overall though, giving me about 2 hours better. And it's noticeable, but I also notice when I have more battery life, I use my phone more. So it's kind of draining similarly for me because when I know it can last longer, I start using it more. I don't know if you feel the same, but overall, you know, it's not a mind-blowing increase. It is making the iPhone 13 kind of what you want it to be. A phone that lasts even when you use it hard. Even when you have that brightness blasting outside in the sunlight, it still can last. So it's a strong performer in the area of battery life. Not quite up there with the Pro Max series and the Pro, but it's still very good. And I think, you know, consumers are going to love this update. It's something that you actually feel throughout your day. One thing that I'm not super happy about is that this can only charge at 20 watts through this lightning cable down here. It comes with a USB-C, that lightning cable, but at 20 watts, you know, there are phones that are doing 60 watts. So I'm looking at you, OnePlus. So this definitely, I think Apple can start increasing the speed at which these do charge in the future. That's an area we could see an upgrade. Now, when it comes to the overall, you know, audio quality of this phone, I gotta say it's also darn good, as you would expect.
The audio got corrupted, so I'm not gonna peel the tabs off for this one right here. So let me go ahead and showcase to you.
Very loud, crisp, what you would expect from this phone. Let me go ahead and bring out my sound meter. We'll take a look at the actual volume.
This new iPhone, definitely a lot lighter than the last year model. So if you're into a lighter, more of a baby blue, you'll definitely dig this one right here.
So in this video, I hit 93.9 decibels. It's a loud speaker, definitely a loud dual speaker setup. I think you'll be happy with the audio. On the topic of phone call quality, very good. We're using Qualcomm in here. Fast 5G here on T-Mobile. It depends on your network or where your area is if you're going to be getting 5G, but with the 5G you see ultra capacity. I've been seeing ridiculous speeds. Signal strength has been fine. You know, this doesn't have the newer Bluetooth 5.2. It does stick with Bluetooth 5.0. Not that that's a bad thing, but I would have liked to see Apple put the 5.2, just be on the latest standard. You know, as this is the latest iPhone right here. And discussing Face ID, I am a little disappointed we didn't see a Touch ID in the home button right here. So Apple left some stuff on the table to be upgraded with the iPhone 13. They didn't give it to you all here, but they did make some improvements over the iPhone 12. So overall, how do I feel about the iPhone 13? Well, I have some mixed feelings about this phone. I think it's a pleasure to use. Don't get me wrong. The iPhone 12 was a pleasure to use as well. This phone improves on that. But I also can't help myself from thinking, you know, that there was more upgrades that could have been made. Like, in the software, I want to see a split screen. I want to see the notch get reduced. I want to see, you know, maybe a triple camera, quad camera on the Pros, triple camera for this model right here, because there's phones that are, you know, in this price range cheaper than this with quad cameras. So I feel like Apple can do that down the line as well. I think this is an excellent upgrade if you have an iPhone 11 or an iPhone 10R. If you have a 12, this is much harder to recommend, but if you want the latest and greatest, you'll probably still be happy if you loved your 12. I do think you might have buyer's remorse though if they go ahead and launch something brand new next year with a total redesign. Honestly, if I was to give this a score on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd probably give it an 8. I had to take away 2 points because I just feel like Apple could have done a little bit more here. And that's not to say they didn't do great. This is an excellent phone. It'll probably be the volume seller and you probably won't be disappointed. Let me know your thoughts on it. Are you picking up the iPhone 13? Are you going with one of the other 13 models, 13 mini, 13 Pro, or 13 Pro Max? Let me know down below in the comments. Thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Subscribe if you haven't already. Nick here. Be sure to be well and peace.